that dream, that desire, that thing that you are going after, it may be a bad season for you right now, but it has not come to stay. It is going to pass. Nothing is permanent. A few years ago, I was relatively early in business. I had started a business and it was not going very well. It was not going well. I was failing miserably. And it got to the point where I was literally not bringing in, I wasn't bringing in much. And so as a result of that, I needed, or I believed I needed another source of income. And I decided then that since things were not working out for me with the business, it may make a bit of sense that I try and find a job. And prior to that, I had only worked at two places. And I'm going to say one because one of those places was not really my job per se. I was just holding the space for a very short period for my sister-in-law, who at the time had just given birth to my nephew. And they needed somebody to just fill in for her briefly. And so I acted as that person right there in the gap. But the other job I would have had was a job that lasted that lasted no more than say 2 weeks. I was working with this in the store during my break in university. And so those are the only two jobs that I would have had in my entire life. Because somewhere in my journey, I got it into my head that I am an entrepreneur. I told myself somewhere in my journey, when I started personal development, somewhere along my journey, I had made the decision that I was going to be an entrepreneur. And so that is where my focus was. But unfortunately, the business that I was operating at the time was not functioning. It was not businessing at all. And so I needed to find some source of income because as a single mother who is the sole provider for my son, I needed money coming in. I have to eat, he has to eat, and bills, they have to be paid. And I decided to go and find a job. I went out on the hunt. I remember I had way over 50 or so applications, and I went and I delivered them. I am not too far away from Negril, and that's Negril, Jamaica, which is a tourist destination. And I went into Negril and I walked the entire beach. I also had a friend who at the time he needed a job too. And I suggested to him that he come along with me and we go and do the walk together, but he was not up for it. So I walked the entire length of the beach and I handed out these applications looking for a job. There was one place that I stopped at, and a bit after I left there and I left the application, they called me back because I had a decent enough resume. And they called me back. I went in, and based on the discussion, these people wanted to literally pay me peanuts for a whole bulk of work. Literal peanuts. That would pretty much just cover fare and a bit of lunch. So that really didn't make any sense. I continued on the search and I heard about a work fair that was being done by one of the call centers. And I decided I was going to go and I was going to check it out. So I took a look at what was there. I went through the process and I was given the job. After having gotten the job, they are now telling us how much we are going to be paid. And when I did the calculation in the US currency, they were pretty much paying us about $2-3 thereabout per hour. I remember that day I had met this young lady, and she had also went for the interview as well. Unfortunately, she didn't get the job. And we took a bus home together. But while on my way back home, I sat in the bus and I started to cry. I started to cry because something welled up in me. And I said, this cannot be it for me. I know that I am valued way more than this. I bring way more than this in terms of value. And while I was there sitting and crying in the bus, crying in the bus, I said, something in me said, try again. Try again. And it was speaking regarding business. Try again. And I went home that evening. I wasn't a Christian then. I wasn't a believer then, but I grew up in church. But I went home that evening and I prayed. I prayed and I asked the Lord to provide me with some kind of guidance. I knew that He had called me into entrepreneurship, but I was having a very difficult season. I had gotten some big ideas into my head. I was dreaming at some big things, but at this specific time in my life, nothing, there was no evidence of growth. Everything, it was just desert. It was just a very stagnant stage of my life. But that evening I prayed and I talked with the Lord. And like He does, He shows up and He answers. And sometimes we don't recognize His answering immediately. But what happened is that a few days after I had that experience and I prayed and all this good stuff, I got a call from my brother who said he was going to give my number to somebody. And the person called me. When the person called me, he said he got my number from my brother and he's asking if I can come and MC a school event for him. It was a prize giving ceremony. And I said, let me check my schedule as if I had anything going on. You know, you have to appear, appear like something is happening, appear like you're important. You know how we can do, right? And so I took a few little seconds and said, I am free. And he said, wonderful. I went and I did that event and I ended up being their guest speaker as well for the event. And after the event, we had an amazing time, like I always do at events. I always have an amazing time at events. And so we had a great time. But after the event, the principal invited me to her office. And I went, we chatted for a bit, and she gave me an envelope and I went home. After I got home, I placed the envelope on one of the tables on the inside and I went about my business. And later in the evening, I opened the envelope. When I looked in the envelope, there was what I was expecting to see was a thank you card. And there it was, as I had expected, a nice thank you card. But in the middle of the card, there was also some cash money. And I was very grateful because as I would have shared, I was destitute. I was in a very bad season. I also had another event another school event that I was going to be emceeing a few days after that as well. And I've emceed at the time for that school. I maybe emceed for them twice before. And on both occasions, they gave me some nice gift baskets or stuff like that. And when I emceed that event, that particular year, they gave me an envelope. I went home, did the same thing, but I must be honest, I was far more anxious this time around to see what was in the envelope. So I opened the envelope, same as before. There was a thank you card, and there was also some cash money in the middle of the card. And so right away, an idea went off in my head. Ding, 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 ding. I said to myself, this is a business. You have the skill set. People call you for the skill set. You've always done it for free, willingly doing it for free for years. There can be a business, but I'd never thought of it as a business before, because up to that point, I've never received tangible money. I've never received tangible money, but this was God in his beautiful way, answering and providing me with a directive. Right there and then, I decided that I was going to be an MC. And the thing about me, when I make a decision, I act right away. That's one of the things that I've always loved about myself. I don't procrastinate a lot. And so right away, when I said that to myself, I made a decision then and there, and I went to work on the idea. In the same evening, I grabbed my little laptop and I created a little poster thingy, a little flyer, and a little business card thing. And I started to put it out there that, hey, I am an MC and all these good things. And within that very same week, just a few days after I did that, somebody called me and asked, Chris, are you an MC? Do you do MCing? I don't know where the person got the info or what, but it got to the person. And I said, absolutely, positively, yes. And she said, wonderful. Will you MC my wedding for me? And I said, of course, I would love to. And she asked me price. I'd never charged before. I didn't know what to charge. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I quoted her a price. And she said that was a little bit on the higher side for her. And we agreed on something. I went to her event, her wedding, and it was just such a spectacular evening. We had such an amazing, amazing time. Man, it was just fire, fire, fire. It was such a wonderful, wonderful experience. And after the wedding, she handed me, she had paid half of the money up front prior, and then after the wedding she handed me the balance, but she didn't give me the balance I was expecting, because I was expecting half of it, but this money had no quite multiplied, I guess. And what she said, I had done such an amazing job. She felt, no, man, she had to give more than what we had agreed on. And while I was at her event, at her wedding, the wedding planner was there, and she kept asking them, who is this young lady? Where did they find this MC? And she wanted so much to get in contact with me so I could do some of her weddings. And they told her that I was going to come in a specific area after the event so she could speak to me then. And so after the wedding, sure enough, I went into that area, and she ran up to me, and she, in Jamaican language, she said, Pitney, where you come from? And we had a good talk, and she said, you are just spectacular. You bring a whole different level of life and excitement to these events. And we just had a great time in conversation. And she said, I want you to do some of my weddings. In fact, I want you to do all of my weddings once the persons don't have an MC. And I said, absolutely. And that is how my journey started as an MC. And I just started to attract wedding after wedding and event after event. And things just started to turn around. And then after that, I shifted into other things. But what was provided for within that period was enough to sustain me, was enough to now start bringing in sufficient income that I could pay my bills, I could survive on, and my name just started to get out there in terms of me being an MC. Now, I don't do a lot of events anymore because my primary business takes a whole lot in terms of attention, but it's still something I enjoy doing. And I want to say to somebody this morning, try again. Try again. You may be at that point in your journey where things are stagnant, things are not coming together, and you are thinking about quitting. I want to say to you this morning, try again. Give it another try. Go to the Lord, pray about it, earnestly pray about it. He will provide the directives. It certainly played out exactly that way for me. And I have gone on to just build an amazing career for myself that I'm enjoying very, very much. And it all started right there and then. I was about to quit. I was in the process of trying to find a job. I was literally about to give up on myself as an entrepreneur. I was in a bad state, destitute, worried and anxious about paying the bills. But it all turned around when a voice said to me, try one more time. And I went home, I cried, I prayed, and the rest is history. So I close out by saying to you, don't quit on yourself. That dream, that desire, that thing that you are going after, it may be a bad season for you right now, but it has not come to stay. It is going to pass. Nothing is permanent. This too shall pass, it will pass. Try again. This is Coach Chris saying to you, write your own destiny. For your